A single glass bottle. That's all it took to shatter 3 lives forever. On September 17, 2024, in a luxury apartment overlooking Dubai's glittering marina, a man discovered that the woman he'd loved for 3 years had been living a lie. By the time Dubai police arrived at Jumeirah Beach Residence Tower 3, apartment 2407, one person was dead, another was bleeding on Italian marble floors, and a third was on the phone with the most expensive criminal defense attorney in the Middle East. This isn't a story about love. It's a story about the price of deception in a city where everything, including identity, can be bought and sold. Tonight, we're taking you inside one of Dubai's most shocking crimes of passion, where a nightclub dancer's double life collided with a billionaire's obsession, and where the line between victim and villain became so blurred that even the courts couldn't agree on justice. If you walked into White Dubai on any Thursday night in 2021, past the velvet ropes where 1,000 dirham bottles sparkled under crystal chandeliers, you would have seen her. Anya, 31 years old, moved across the elevated platform with the kind of precision that only comes from years of ballet training. 5'9", blonde, with the athletic build of someone who'd spent their childhood chasing perfection in front of mirrors. Her Instagram boasted 47,000 followers, each post a carefully curated glimpse into a life that looked like paradise. But Anya hadn't always lived in paradise. She'd been born in Ekaterinburg, Russia, an industrial city where winter meant -30 degrees and summer meant the factories ran hot enough to make breathing difficult. Her father died in one of those factories when she was 12, crushed between machinery that hadn't been serviced in a decade. Her mother worked 3 jobs after that, cleaning offices before dawn, sorting packages at midday, and serving drinks at night. They shared a 2-room apartment with Anya's aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins. Privacy was a luxury they couldn't afford. Heat was rationed. Food was calculated down to the last ruble. Anya's escape route was her feet. A ballet scholarship at 14 took her to Moscow, where she learned that beauty was currency and survival meant playing roles her teachers never explicitly taught. Her mother had told her once, washing dishes at 2 in the morning, "In this world, men have money and women have youth. Use yours before it expires." By 19, Anya was dancing professionally in Moscow. By 23, a knee injury ended that dream in a rehearsal room that smelled like sweat and crushed ambition. By 24, she was working Moscow nightclubs, learning that wealthy men paid well for the illusion of connection. And by 27, when a Dubai entertainment agency offered her an artist visa and promises of tax-free luxury, she barely listened to the details before saying yes. She arrived in Dubai in January 2020, age 28, carrying 2 suitcases and a philosophy she developed over years of survival. Every relationship is a transaction. At least I'm honest about it. She had a ritual before every shift at White Dubai. 3 shots of vodka, precisely measured, to achieve the perfect balance between charming and controlled. Too sober and she couldn't fake the enthusiasm wealthy clients expected. Too drunk and she made mistakes. Anya never made mistakes. Fadi Ibrahim Al-Khoury didn't need to wait in line at White Dubai. He owned a private table that cost more per night than most people in Dubai made in a month. At 38 years old, he was the heir to Al-Khoury Properties, a commercial real estate empire worth billions. He'd been educated at American University of Beirut, earned his master's from London School of Economics, and wore Brioni suits that were tailored so perfectly they looked like they'd been born on his body. His Patek Philippe watch collection was worth more than most people's homes. But money hadn't bought Fadi the one thing he'd been searching for since his mother died 14 years earlier. Someone who would love him for who he was, not what he represented. His mother had told him on her deathbed, her hand cold in his, "Your father will never love you the way he loves his business. Find someone who will." He'd been searching ever since, through a series of relationships with appropriate Lebanese women that his family approved of and his heart rejected. At 25, he'd broken off an engagement 3 months before the wedding. His father, Ibrahim Al-Khoury, hadn't spoken to him for 6 months after that. The message was clear: personal feelings were subordinate to family legacy. Now, at 38, Fadi was running out of time. His father, 72 years old and dying of lung cancer, had given him an ultimatum at a family dinner 6 months earlier: marry before I die or Karim inherits primary control. Karim was Fadi's younger brother by 5 years, ambitious, ruthless, and constantly waiting for Fadi to fail. Fadi kept a photograph of his mother in his wallet. In it, She wore a simple dress, no jewelry, no makeup, just herself. He would stare at it sometimes during board meetings, wondering if he'd become the kind of man she would have been proud of. He suspected he hadn't. November 12, 2021. 1:47 a.m. White Dubai was at capacity. 850 people packed into a space designed for spectacle rather than comfort. Fadi had come to celebrate closing a $340 million commercial deal. His business partners had insisted on White Dubai. He hated these places, too loud, too fake, too transactional. But when Anya stepped onto the elevated platform for her performance, something in him stopped. It wasn't just her physical beauty, though that was undeniable. It was something in her eyes: distance, control, mystery. She looked at the crowd but didn't see anyone. She was there but not there. For the first time in years, Fadi saw someone who seemed as isolated in a crowd as he felt. Anya had noticed him immediately. Table 7 near the back. Alone despite being surrounded by associates. Different from the usual clientele. He watched her like he was trying to solve a puzzle, not purchase a commodity. She recognized the watch, the posture, the quiet confidence that came from never having worried about money. Her professional assessment took 3 seconds. Wealthy. Older but not old. Intense. Potential for 6 months of rent if handled correctly. When her set ended, 17 men tried to send drinks to her dressing room. She ignored all of them. Instead, she walked directly to table 7, a tactical choice designed to seem like spontaneous chemistry. "You weren't watching the performance," she said, standing at the edge of his table. "You were analyzing it." Fadi looked up, caught off guard. "Is there a difference? Most men here see decoration. You were looking for something real. Did you find it convincing?" "My search for something real in a place designed to be fantasy." Anya smiled, her first genuine smile of the night. "I find it expensive." For the first time in a decade, Fadi felt like someone saw him, not his bank account. For Anya, it was a perfect opening move. 60% genuine interest, just enough to feel real without being free. He invited her to dinner. She declined. "I don't date clients." He returned the next night with flowers. She accepted them but nothing else. The third night, he brought a first-edition Russian poetry book, Akhmatova's Requiem. He'd noticed a tattoo on her wrist, 3 lines of Russian text. It took him 2 days to find a translator, discover it was Akhmatova, and locate the book. Cost $4,200. Anya was genuinely surprised. The book told her something important. This man paid attention to details most people missed. That made him valuable. That made him dangerous. On the 4th night, she agreed to coffee, if you stop coming to the club. What Fadi didn't know, what he would never know until it was far too late, was that Anya was already married. While Fadi was spending $4,200 on poetry books, Anya was coming home to a studio apartment in International City, the unglamorous district where Dubai's working class actually lived. It was a 400-square-foot box with a window that looked onto another building's concrete wall. The rent was 2,200 dirhams a month, cheap by Dubai standards, which meant the water pressure was terrible and the air conditioning worked intermittently. But it was home, because Rami was there. Rami Kassab was 29 years old, Syrian, with kind eyes and a smile that got tired around the edges by the end of his double shifts at the Hilton Dubai Jumeirah. He worked as assistant front desk manager, making 6,500 dirhams a month, about $1,770. It was more than he'd ever made in Syria before the war destroyed everything, but in Dubai it was barely survival wages. They'd met in May 2019. Rami was working the night shift, half asleep at 4 a.m., when Anya came into the hotel bar after work. She ordered vodka and sat alone, still wearing her stage makeup but with her guard completely down. Most women who came in at that hour were working. Most men at the hotel treated them accordingly. But Rami had just brought her water alongside her vodka and said, "Long night." She'd looked at him, really looked at him, and seen someone who wasn't trying to purchase anything from her. They talked until his shift ended at 6 a.m. She learned he'd lost his parents in a bombing in Damascus in 2015. He learned she sent money home to her mother every month. Neither judged the other for what they did to survive. By October 2019, they were married at the Russian Orthodox Church in Dubai. 2 co-workers as witnesses, certificate filed but not publicly announced. The reason was simple. Anya's work persona required appearing single and available. Men didn't pay premium prices for women with husbands. They'd had one conversation about the arrangement, the night before the wedding, in this same studio apartment. "I don't need to know details," Rami had said quietly. "I just need to know. Are we building toward something? Yes, 2 more years, maybe 3. Then we leave all of this behind. I can wait. I've waited for everything else in my life." Rami knew what Anya did for work. He knew about the arrangements with wealthy men. He'd made peace with it the way refugees make peace with many things, by focusing on survival today and freedom tomorrow. Their plan was simple. Anya would work, save money, and they'd move to Canada or Germany where she could be herself, and he could finish the engineering degree the Syrian civil war had interrupted. On Friday mornings, the only morning they both had free, Rami would cook Syrian breakfast. Zadar manakish, labna, olives from the small Middle Eastern grocery in Karama. Anya would sit across from him in old pajamas, no makeup, eating with her hands. These were the only hours she allowed herself to be completely real. The courtship between Fadi and Anya unfolded like a carefully choreographed performance, except only one of them knew they were acting. In the first 6 months, November 2021 through April 2022, Fadi fell in love the way men with unlimited resources often do, completely, intensely, and with the assumption that money could solve any obstacle. He took Anya to restaurants where dinner cost more than monthly rent. He gave her jewelry, designer clothes, weekend trips to Abu Dhabi where they stayed in suites overlooking the Arabian Gulf. Each gift was carefully chosen, each gesture designed to show her that she was valued, cherished, seen. Anya accepted these gifts with a strategy she'd perfected over years of survival. Accept enough to show appreciation but not so much that it feels transactional. Limit physical intimacy to maintain mystery. Reveal vulnerability in calculated doses. Make him feel like he was gradually winning something precious rather than purchasing something common. Her interpretation of her own behavior, professional relationship management, no different from what therapists or consultants do, sell attention, sell time, sell the illusion of exclusive access. His interpretation of her behavior, she's different from other women. She's not materialistic. She genuinely likes me for who I am. By December 2021, Fadi decided he wanted Anya to quit dancing at White Dubai. Not because he was jealous, or so he told himself, but because someone as intelligent and refined as her deserved better than performing for drunken businessmen. He offered her an allowance of 25,000 dirhams a month, about $6,800, so you don't have to work as much. The following month, January 2022, he presented her with keys to a 2-bedroom apartment in JBR with views of Dubai Marina. The property was worth $2.1 million. He put it in his name but told her it was yours for as long as you need it. In February, he gave her a Mercedes C-Class, so you don't have to take taxis anymore. Anya moved into the JBR apartment in March 2022. She furnished it with Fadi's money, decorated it to his taste, and lived there 4 days a week. On Fridays and Saturdays, she told Fadi she was visiting her mother in Russia. In reality, she took a taxi to International City, powered on her second phone, a cheap Android she kept hidden in her gym bag, and spent those 2 days with Rami in their 400-square-foot studio. The logistics of her double life required military precision. She maintained 2 phones, an iPhone 13 Pro that Fadi knew about and paid for, with GPS tracking shared so he could always know where she was, and the Android that contained her real life, her texts with Rami, her photos from their apartment, her research about Canadian immigration. She created Russia visit content in advance. Photos with Russian friends she paid to pose with her. Videos of her mother's neighborhood that were actually filmed in Dara's Russian district. Instagram posts scheduled weeks ahead to maintain the illusion while she was actually 30 minutes away in Rami's arms. Monday through Thursday, she was Fadi's companion. Designer clothes, beauty treatments, lunch with his approved social circle, dinner at his table. She learned to speak his language, commercial real estate trends, Lebanese politics, the social dynamics of Dubai's wealthy Christian Arab community. She became fluent in his world. Friday through Saturday, she was Rami's wife. Old t-shirts, no makeup, Arabic music on the cheap Bluetooth speaker, conversations about the news from Syria and whether Toronto or Vancouver would be better for starting over. She remembered how to speak her own language. Dreams, fears, the person she'd been before survival required performance. Sunday was buffer day. She maintained both phones, both identities, both lies. Dr. Layla Hassan, A criminal psychologist who would later evaluate Anya during the trial explained it this way: she wasn't a psychopath. She was a survivor who'd learned to split her identity as a coping mechanism. Many people in transactional relationships develop this skill, the ability to be two completely different people in different contexts. It's not evil. It's adaptive, but it's also unsustainable. The cracks started showing in March 2023. Fadi surprised her at the JBR apartment on a Friday evening. Anya was actually with Rami, her phone on silent because Fridays were sacred time. Fadi used his key, entered the empty apartment, and found makeup positioned slightly differently than how she usually left it. Small details: a lipstick moved, perfume bottle facing the wrong direction. When Anya returned Saturday night, he asked casual questions. How was Russia? How's your mother? She answered smoothly. She'd practiced these answers 1,000 times, but she'd seen how he looked at the makeup counter. Suspicion just a flicker. She increased her precautions after that. By August 2023, Anya had saved approximately $280,000. She kept it in a separate bank account Fadi didn't know about, under her married name, Anya Kasab. Her goal was $500,000. Then she and Rami would disappear. Germany most likely. Rami had distant relatives in Berlin. They'd file for asylum, start over, leave both of their Dubai lives behind like costumes after a play ended. Rami asked her every few months, "When do we tell him and end this?" Her answer was always the same: soon, just a little longer. The truth she couldn't admit to Rami, couldn't admit to herself, was that part of her had gotten comfortable in the gilded cage. The JBR apartment was beautiful. The Mercedes was fast. The restaurants Fadi took her to served food she'd never tasted growing up. The life he'd given her wasn't real, but it was pleasant. And pleasant was a drug she'd never been able to afford before. She kept 2 different perfumes. Chanel No. 5 for Fadi, his mother's favorite, a detail he'd mentioned once and she'd filed away. A cheap Russian brand for Rami, it reminded him of Damascus markets before the war. She would shower between worlds, washing away one identity to put on another. The water never felt clean enough. While Anya was balancing her double life with increasing difficulty, Fadi was facing mounting pressure from his family. April 2024. Ibrahim Al-Khouri's villa in Emirates Hills, 14,000 square feet of marble, crystal chandeliers, and centuries of Lebanese Christian tradition compressed into Dubai's most exclusive neighborhood. The family gathered for dinner. Ibrahim, skeletal now from the cancer eating him from inside. Karim, Fadi's younger brother, watching everything with calculating eyes. Lara, their sister, trying to keep peace, and various uncles and cousins who represented the weight of expectation. Ibrahim Al-Khouri had built his fortune through ruthlessness disguised as business acumen. He'd taught his children that personal feelings were subordinate to family legacy. Marriage wasn't about love, it was about alliance. Children weren't blessings, they were heirs. Emotions were weaknesses to be controlled. Fadi, his father's voice was thin but still carried command. You're 38 years old. Your brother has 2 sons. Your sister's children will carry another name. The Al-Khouri line dies with you unless you stop this embarrassing delay. Father, I've explained. You've explained nothing. I've arranged meetings with 3 suitable families. Daughters with proper education, proper background. You'll meet them. You'll choose one. You'll marry before I die. Or Karim inherits operational control. Karim spoke up, inserting the knife with precision. Maybe Fadi has someone already. Someone he's embarrassed to introduce us to. Silence fell across the table. Fadi's jaw tightened. His sister Lara tried to deflect. Baba, let him find someone in his own time. His own time expires with my heartbeat, Ibrahim said flatly. I want to see grandchildren before I die. If you can't provide them, Karim will inherit Al-Khouri properties. You'll have your trust fund, but not the legacy. The stakes were clear. Control of a $4.2 billion commercial real estate portfolio. Family companies employing over 2,000 people. Political influence across the Lebanese diaspora in UAE. Social standing in Dubai's Lebanese Christian community of approximately 80,000 people. Karim had always been the second son, second in inheritance, second in their father's affection, second in everything that mattered. He'd built his strategy carefully over years, expose Fadi's embarrassing secret, force him to choose between love and legacy, watch him fail either way. It wasn't personal. It was business. The family business. In May 2024, Kareem hired Al-Shark Investigations, a private firm that specialized in marital investigations and business intelligence. Cost, 50,000 dirhams, about $13,600. Timeline, 90 days maximum. Instructions, find everything about Anya Volkov. Every detail. I want to know who she is, where she came from, and what she's hiding. The investigation began with digital footprint analysis, social media, employment records, visa applications. Within 2 weeks, the investigators knew Anya had worked at multiple Dubai nightclubs between 2020 and 2021. They knew her visa listed her occupation as dancer. They knew she maintained multiple social media accounts with suspiciously curated content. By week 4, they'd placed a GPS tracking device on her Mercedes, illegal but common in Dubai's shadow investigation industry. They photographed her daily routine. They noticed the pattern. Every Friday and Saturday, she disappeared. Not to the airport, not to Russia, to International City. Week 7 brought the breakthrough. Following her Friday morning routine, investigators traced Anya to Building 17, International City, Unit 405. The apartment was registered to Rami Kassab, Syrian national hospitality worker. Surveillance showed Anya entering at 6:47 a.m. Photographs through the window showed physical affection, domestic intimacy. This wasn't a professional arrangement. This was real. The final piece fell into place in week 8. Marriage certificates in UAE are technically public record if you know where to look. The investigator had a contact at Dubai courts, a clerk who supplemented his 4,000 dirham salary with consultation fees. For 2,000 dirhams, he provided a certified copy of the marriage certificate dated October 15, 2019. Parties, Anya Volkov and Rami Kassab. The report delivered to Kareem in August 2024 was comprehensive. 240 photographs, GPS tracking data from 3 months, witness statements from neighbors, financial analysis showing money transfers to a separate account under the name Anya Kassab, and the marriage certificate that proved everything Fadi believed about Anya was a lie. Kareem sat in his office reading the report 3 times. Not because he didn't understand it, because he was savoring it. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, proof that his brother's judgment was fatally flawed, that Fadi wasn't worthy of their father's legacy, that the company should be his. But Kareem was strategic. Timing mattered. Revealing this information while their father was healthy would simply give Fadi time to recover, make excuses, find another suitable bride. No. The revelation needed to happen at a moment of maximum vulnerability. He would wait for the perfect moment, and then he would destroy his brother's delusion with a few photographs and a marriage certificate. That moment came on September 14, 2024, the day they buried their father. Lebanese Christian funerals in Dubai are elaborate affairs. 3 days of mourning, hundreds of attendees, public displays of grief that double as social networking. Ibrahim al-Khoury's funeral drew over 600 people to the Maronite Cathedral in Jebel Ali. The smell of incense mixed with expensive perfume. Men in black suits murmured condolences while calculating business implications. Women dabbed tears while evaluating who'd worn appropriate mourning attire. Fadi was genuinely grieving. His relationship with his father had been complicated. More disappointment than love, more expectation than connection. But it was still loss. Real loss. His father had died without seeing him married, without grandchildren from him, without ever believing Fadi was worthy of the legacy. That failure burned deeper than any business loss. Anya wasn't at the funeral. She wasn't family. She'd never been introduced to the Al-Khoury clan. She existed in a separate compartment of Fadi's life, the private compartment, the one he protected from his family's judgment. She sent flowers with a card that read, "My deepest condolences. I'm here if you need me." Hey, he'd texted her once during the 3 days. "Thank you for understanding. This is harder than I expected." She'd responded, "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." That last sentence would prove tragically ironic. On the 3rd day, after the burial, after the guests departed, after the public performance of grief ended, Kareem asked Fadi to meet him in their father's study. Private. Just brothers. The study still smelled like their father's cigars. Romeo y Julieta Chowchills, $45 each, smoked despite the lung cancer because Ibrahim al-Khoury didn't take orders from disease. I need to tell you something, Karim said, closing the door. About your girlfriend. Fadi was exhausted. 3 days of no sleep, of greeting strangers, of pretending to accept wisdom from uncles who'd never built anything themselves. Not now, Karim. This isn't the time for whatever game you're. She's married, Fadi. Married. The whole time. The words hung in the air like smoke. Fadi's expression didn't change immediately. His brain was processing the syllables but rejecting the meaning. That's ridiculous. Why would you? Karim slid a folder across their father's desk. The leather surface was still covered with documents Ibrahim had been reviewing the day before he died. Business reports, acquisition proposals, the work that had mattered more than his sons. Because I wanted to know who was going to be family, so I checked. You should have checked. Fadi opened the folder with hands that had started shaking. The first page was a marriage certificate. Official stamp from Dubai courts. Date: October 15, 2019. Parties: Anya Volkov and Rami Kassab. His eyes read the words multiple times, trying to find the error, the Photoshop mistake, the joke. When did she? His voice sounded far away. October 2019. 2 years before she met you. His name is Rami, Syrian, works at a Hilton, makes $6,500 a month, lives in International City. She visits him every Friday, while you're paying her rent in JBR. Fadi flipped through the photographs, image after image. Anya and a man, average height, kind face, tired eyes, on a small balcony. Anya in casual clothes, no makeup, looking more relaxed than she ever looked with him. Anya's hand on the man's shoulder, casual intimacy, the touch of someone comfortable. Anya laughing at something mundane. Anya being real. These are fake. You photoshopped. There are 240 more. GPS data from her car, the car you bought her. Witness statements from neighbors. Bank records showing she's been moving money to an account under the name Anya Kassab. It's all real, brother. She's been playing you for 3 years. Fadi's hands gripped the edge of the desk. His knuckles went white. Why are you showing me this today? At father's funeral. Karim's voice was almost gentle, which made it worse. Because you need to understand what father understood. You can't trust your instincts about people. You see what you want to see. You defended her to the family. You prioritized her over father's wishes. And she was married the entire time. This is why you're not ready to lead this family. Every moment with Anya replayed in Fadi's mind at accelerated speed. Every, I love you. Every intimate conversation about their future together. Every vulnerable confession he'd shared. Every time he'd defended their relationship to his family, insisted she was different, promised they'd marry soon. All of it lies, performance, transaction. The grief he'd been feeling for his father twisted into something else. Something hot and sharp and desperately seeking a target. His father had died disappointed in him. His brother was right, he'd been a fool. And the woman he'd built his future around had been laughing at him in a cheap apartment with her actual husband. The investigation folder sat on the desk between them. Fadi picked it up slowly. Where is she now? Probably at the apartment you're paying for. Or maybe she's with him. It's Friday. Fadi stood. His movements were mechanical, automated. Grief and humiliation and rage mixing into something that felt like clarity but was actually chaos. I need to talk to her. Fadi, maybe you should wait until. I need to talk to her now. He left his father's house at 9:47 p.m., got into his Range Rover, and drove toward JBR. He would later claim he didn't remember making the decision to go. Forensic psychologists would debate whether that was true or convenient. What's certain is that he was running on 3 days of no sleep, grief that had nowhere to go, and humiliation that demanded resolution. The investigation folder sat in his passenger seat. Every red light was an opportunity to turn around. Every turn toward the marina was a choice. He ran 2 red lights, drove 120 kilometers per hour in an 80 zone. Traffic cameras captured his erratic driving. Later, prosecutors would show this footage as evidence of intent. He was racing toward confrontation, not stumbling into it. What Fadi didn't know, tonight was Friday evening. Rami was at the apartment. This would be the first time all 3 of them would be in the same room. Anya had no warning he was coming. Inside JBR apartment 2407, Anya and Rami were cooking dinner together. The kitchen smelled like garlic and olive oil. Rami was making mujadara, Syrian lentils and rice, his mother's recipe from Damascus before the war. Cheap ingredients transformed into comfort food. They were discussing Canadian immigration timelines. Rami had been researching visa requirements all week. The express entry system favors younger applicants, he said, stirring the pot. We should apply within the next 6 months to maximize our chances. Anya was setting the table, the cheap IKEA table they'd bought together 3 years ago. I'm almost at the goal, maybe 1 more month. Then we tell him I give back the apartment keys and we disappear. You've been saying 1 more month for a year now. I know, but this time I mean it. I'm tired of this, Rami. Tired of being 2 different people. I just want to be your wife, publicly, honestly. Rami turned from the stove and kissed her forehead. I can wait. I've waited through worse. They didn't hear the key in the lock, didn't hear the door open. The music was playing. Faraz, the Lebanese singer whose voice sounded like honey and heartbreak. Anya had played it once for Fadi, claimed she loved it. She did love it, but not because of him. She loved it because Rami loved it. Fadi stood in the doorway watching them. The domestic scene, the comfortable intimacy. Her hand on Rami's waist as she reached past him for something. Real affection, unperformed love, everything she'd never given him. So this is what $25,000 a month buys. His voice was cold, controlled, barely human. A part-time illusion. Both of them spun around. Anya's face drained of color. Rami immediately stepped in front of her. Protective instinct, the gesture of someone who actually loves the person behind them. Fadi, what are you doing here? Anya's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. In my apartment? The one I'm paying for? Where apparently my wife's husband is cooking dinner. Rami spoke quietly, carefully, the tone he used with agitated hotel guests. I think you should leave. We can talk about this tomorrow when... We can talk about this? Fadi threw the investigation folder on the counter. Photographs spilled across the marble. Images of them together. The marriage certificate landed face up, official and undeniable. About how you've been stealing from me for 3 years. About how every word from her mouth was a lie. Dr. Hassan would later explain what was happening in Fadi's brain during this moment. He arrived expecting to confront a guilty party from a position of moral authority. But finding Rami there, the actual husband, the legitimate relationship, destabilized his narrative. Suddenly, he wasn't the betrayed lover confronting his cheating girlfriend. He was the other man, the fool. That cognitive dissonance, combined with his grief state, created psychological volatility that was extremely dangerous. Anya didn't cry, didn't apologize, didn't perform. For the first time in 3 years, she couldn't afford to perform. The calculation in her eyes was pure survival assessment. I never lied about what this was. You wanted a fantasy. I provided it. That was the arrangement. The arrangement? We talked about marriage. About a future. You talked about marriage. Someday. After father dies. After things settle. You talked. I listened. There's a difference. Fadi's voice rose, control slipping. You're married. You've been married since before we met. You took my money, my gifts, lived in my apartment while you... Rami interrupted, fatal mistake. While she survived, that's what you paid for. Survival, not love. You can't buy that. For words, you can't buy that. This unremarkable Syrian refugee, this hotel clerk making 6,500 dirhams a month, this nobody, he had what Fadi's millions couldn't purchase. Real affection, genuine intimacy, Anya's actual heart. On the counter between them sat a pot of mujadara, poor people's food, peasant meal, nothing Fadi would ever serve at his table. Next to it, the investigation photo of them on the balcony. In that moment, Fadi understood with devastating clarity. She ate his expensive meals and wore his expensive gifts. But she came home to this, to cheap lentils and real love. Something fundamental snapped in his psyche. Did you laugh about me? His voice was cracking now. When you were here with him, did you laugh about the stupid rich guy who believed your lies? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Enlighten me. What was I to you? Anya made her fatal error. She told the truth. You were an opportunity. A way out. The word hung in the air. Opportunity. You're a good man, Fadi. But you wanted something from me I couldn't give. You wanted a fantasy woman who existed only for you. That's not real. That's not love. You don't get to tell me what love is. I loved you. Rami's voice was quiet but firm. You loved who you wanted her to be, not who she is. The physical positioning was dangerous. Fadi blocked the exit to the front door. Anya stood behind the kitchen island like it was a barrier. Rami positioned himself between Fadi and Anya, protective stance, ready to defend. Fadi's hands clenched and unclenched. His voice broke. 3 years of my life. My father died thinking I was a failure. He died before I could prove I could build a real life. And it was because of her. He pointed at Anya. Because I was wasting time on a lie instead of doing what he asked. That's not her fault, Rami said. You chose. Shut up. You know what you are? You're a thief. You stole from me. Both of you. Thieves. We didn't steal anything you didn't voluntarily give. I gave it because I thought. Fadi's voice broke completely. I thought you loved me. Neighbors would later report hearing shouting from apartment 2407. Male voices, multiple. A woman's voice, something about money, about lying. Then it got louder. Then there was breaking glass. On the kitchen counter, a bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape, $200 wine Fadi had brought weeks ago for a romantic dinner that never happened. Anya had never opened it. In the heat of the argument, Fadi grabbed it, not with intent to use his weapon, just to have control over something, anything, in this moment where he had control over nothing. Rami saw Fadi's grip on the bottle. Hey, let's everybody just calm down. Nobody needs to. Calm down? You're in my apartment with my girlfriend, sorry, your wife, eating food bought with my money, telling me to calm down. Anya stepped forward. Mistake. Fadi, please. You're not thinking clearly. Let's talk about this tomorrow when. When what? When you've had time to come up with better lies. Rami moved toward Fadi, trying to physically guide him toward the door. Not aggressively, calmly. One hand extended. The gesture you'd use with an upset guest. Okay, I think you should leave now. This isn't. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. Rami's hand touched Fadi's shoulder. Gentle pressure, redirecting. And something in Fadi exploded. Not a decision, a detonation. The bottle swung in an arc muscle memory. Rage. 3 days of compressed trauma released in one motion. The bottle was green glass, heavy, 750 milliliters. Laurent Family Vintage 2015. In 2 seconds, it became a murder weapon. The impact made a sound like a branch breaking, glass shattering, liquid wine and blood hitting white marble floor. Rami stumbled backward, hand going to his head, blood immediately flowing through his fingers. He tried to speak, but words didn't form. His legs gave out. No! Rami! Anya's scream was primal. Rami hit the kitchen island and went down. Blood pooling. Consciousness fading. Making sounds that weren't words, just air escaping. Fadi stood frozen, staring at his own hand holding the broken bottle neck. I wasn't. Anya rushed to Rami as he collapsed. Call ambulance. Call ambulance. She tried to stop the bleeding. Applied pressure like she'd seen in movies. But head wounds bleed profusely. The white marble turned red. Rami's eyes rolled back. She looked up at Fadi, no longer calculating, no longer performing. Pure hatred. You killed him. You killed him. She lunged at Fadi, not thinking, just reacting. Tried to grab her phone to call for help. Fadi, still in shock, reacted defensively. Get away from. He pushed her. She fell backward, hit the edge of the marble countertop. Sharp corner caught her temple. She went down near Rami's body. The crime scene, 2 people on the floor. Blood spreading. Broken glass. Wine bottle label still partially visible through the blood spatter. Laurent Family Reserve. Fadi stood there, dissociating, watching like it was happening to someone else. At 10:34 p.m., before calling police, before calling ambulance, he called his family's attorney. This 3-minute delay would become crucial in the prosecution's case. George, I need you. There's been an incident. 2 people are hurt. It's bad. I need you before police arrive. Where are you? Don't say anything to anyone. I'm calling emergency services now and coming to you. JBR. Marina. I think I killed someone. Dubai Emergency Services received the call at 10:38 p.m. Ambulance arrived at 10:42 p.m. They found 2 victims. Male, approximately 30, severe head trauma, unconscious but breathing. Female, approximately 30, head injury, semiconscious. Male appeared critical. Anya was semiconscious, everything red. The floor, her hands, Rami's face. She kept trying to tell them, "He's my husband, save my husband." But words wouldn't come. Someone pulled her away from him. She tried to fight them. She needed to stay with him. They wouldn't let her. Dubai police arrived at 10:47 p.m. They found Fadi sitting on the balcony, broken bottle still in hand, staring at marina lights. When approached, he offered no resistance, placed the bottle down when instructed, extended his wrists for handcuffs voluntarily. "Do you understand you're being detained for assault?" "I understand. My attorney is here. George Nader. Do you need medical attention?" "No." "Is he dead?" "The man on the floor. He's being transported to hospital." "Sir, I need you to." "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." As paramedics loaded Rami into the ambulance, Anya became combative, trying to enter with him. Security footage shows her screaming in Russian, English, Arabic, switching between languages in distress. Police had to physically restrain her. As the ambulance doors closed, Anya saw Rami's face one final time. Blood-soaked, unconscious, breathing apparatus covering his mouth. She would never see him alive again. In his pocket, paramedics found a printed Canadian immigration form, half filled out. Destination city, Toronto. Sponsor, Anya Kassab. Estimated departure date, November 2024. 2 months away. They had been 2 months away from freedom. Rashid Hospital Trauma Center. 11:47 p.m. Dr. Priya Mehta performed emergency craniotomy. Severe traumatic brain injury. Depressed skull fracture. Massive subdural hematoma. Patient arrested twice during surgery. Despite resuscitation efforts, patient expired at 11:47 p.m. on September 17, 2024. Time from injury to death, 76 minutes. Dubai Police Headquarters, Criminal Investigation Department. 2 a.m., September 18, 2024. Fadi sat in an interrogation room that was surprisingly comfortable. Padded chairs, decent air conditioning, bottled water on the table. Even in custody, wealth created distance from discomfort. Captain Rashid Al-Zabi led the interrogation. George Nader, Fadi's attorney, sat beside his client in a suit that cost more than the captain's monthly salary. "Mr. Al-Khoury, you've been read your rights. Your attorney is present. Do you understand the charges?" George Nader spoke before Fadi could. "My client understands. However, before we proceed, I'd like to clarify the circumstances. The circumstances are clear. Your client killed someone with a bottle. We have a witness. We have a victim. We have what amounts to a confession." Fadi spoke for the first time since arrest, voice flat. "I didn't confess to murder. I said I didn't mean to. Intention is for courts to decide. Right now, you're being charged with manslaughter, pending investigation that may upgrade to murder." The evidence against Fadi was overwhelming. Witness testimony from Anya, physical evidence, bottle, fingerprints, blood spatter analysis, apartment ownership records proving he had access, the investigation folder at the scene proving he knew about the affair beforehand, the 3-minute delay calling emergency services, showing consciousness of guilt, attorney called before ambulance, showing calculation even in crisis, the initial charges under UAE Penal Code Article 332, murder with potential for death penalty or life imprisonment. The prosecutor's position, premeditated due to the investigation folder. He'd learned about the betrayal, obtained detailed intelligence, then went to confront them. That showed planning. By 5 a.m., George Nader had assembled an emergency legal team in a conference room at his firm's offices. Present, 2 junior attorneys, a crisis management consultant, and Kareem representing the Al-Khoury family interests. "Evidence is problematic but not impossible," George said, reviewing police reports on his iPad. "We need to reframe the narrative immediately." Kareem leaned forward. "Can we make this go away? Money? Connections? This is murder. It doesn't go away, but we can manage outcomes." George made notes on a legal pad. Strategy. First, get charges reduced from murder to manslaughter. Second, establish emotional distress defense. Third, minimize sentence through cultural context. Fourth, discredit the witness. The witness being the woman who caused all this? Exactly. She's not a grieving widow. She's a con artist who ran a years-long fraud operation. We make the jury understand, Fadi isn't a murderer. He's a victim who snapped. Meanwhile, at 8 a.m., the Al-Khoury family gathered at their Emirates Hills compound. Ibrahim was 3 days dead. Fadi was in custody for murder. The business empire was in crisis. Karim had what he'd wanted, control of the family business, but the cost was higher than anticipated. He's destroyed everything father built, Karim said to the assembled relatives. Lara, their sister, stood up. He's still our brother. We support him. Uncle Mahmoud, a board member, shook his head. The scandal is devastating for business. We need containment. The corporate lawyers present were clear. We need to separate Fadi's personal crisis from Al-Khoury properties immediately. The family allocated financial resources for Fadi's defense. Legal defense budget, unlimited essentially. Crisis management, $500,000 retainer. Private investigators, $200,000. Media strategy, $300,000. Expert witnesses, $400,000. Total immediate allocation, $1.4 million and climbing. Anya's situation was starkly different. She was technically a victim, Fadi had injured her, but also a witness, and potentially complicit in the events leading to Rami's death. Dubai police weren't sure how to classify her. She'd been treated for her injuries, concussion, 12 stitches for the laceration on her temple. She was held for questioning. Her passport was confiscated. She had no family in UAE to support her. Her bank accounts were frozen pending investigation into whether she'd committed fraud. She was assigned a public defender, an overworked attorney named Ahmed Hassan who was handling 47 other cases simultaneously. He met with her once, for 30 minutes, in the hospital where she was recovering. The prosecution may call you as a witness, he told her. Answer their questions honestly. Don't volunteer information. That's the best I can advise. What about Rami? What about justice for him? The state will prosecute. Your job is to testify truthfully. That's all you can do. George Nader's hourly rate was 3,500 dirhams, about $950. Ahmed Hassan made 8,000 dirhams per month as a government attorney. Fadi's legal team would spend more on coffee during trial preparation than Anya's attorney made in a year. The asymmetry was structural, built into the system, invisible to people who'd never experienced both sides of it. Week 1 of the legal proceedings focused on narrative construction. George Nader assembled a strategy memo for his team. Our defense has 3 pillars. First, emotional distress. Fadi was in acute psychological crisis, father's death, discovery of devastating betrayal. He snapped in a moment of compound trauma. This wasn't premeditated, therefore not murder. Second, cultural context. In Middle Eastern cultural framework, honor violation has specific weight. Systematic deception about marriage equals profound honor attack. Judges need to understand cultural harm. Third, victim discrediting. Anya was a con artist running years-long fraud. Rami was complicit. They're criminals, not innocent victims. Fadi is actually the victim who reacted badly. The memo listed required expert witnesses, forensic psychologist for grief state and diminished capacity, cultural expert for honor and shame in Arab context, character witnesses for Fadi's good reputation, financial forensics to prove systematic fraud. The prosecution's counter-strategy was simpler. Lead prosecutor Fatima Al-Khoury had an 89% conviction rate over her 15-year career. She'd seen wealthy defendants try to buy their way out of consequences before. This is classic privilege defense, she told her team. Rich man thinks money can excuse murder. Our case is straightforward. He discovered the affair, got the investigation folder, that's premeditation. He drove to the apartment, that's intent. He killed someone, that's action. Emotion doesn't excuse murder. Her strategy, prove premeditation through the investigation folder. Establish Rami as innocent victim who was defensive, not combative. Use Anya's testimony as eyewitness to murder. Counter the crime of passion defense by highlighting the 3-day delay between discovery at the funeral and the confrontation. Week 2 brought the defense's first major victory. Through backroom negotiations, family connections, and strategic pressure on the prosecutor's office, George Nader got the charges reduced. Murder was downgraded to manslaughter. The reasoning: no evidence of premeditation to kill specifically. The investigation folder proved he knew about the affair but didn't prove he planned to commit murder. The bottle was grabbed in the moment, not brought as a weapon. Legally, this was manslaughter, killing without premeditation. The impact was enormous. Maximum sentence reduced from life imprisonment or death penalty down to 15 years. With good behavior and parole, potentially as little as 4 years served. Prosecutor Al-Kawari's internal memo justified the concession. Investigation folder proves knowledge of affair but doesn't prove intent to kill. Bottle was opportunistic weapon, not premeditated tool. Legally, manslaughter is appropriate charge. We can still achieve justice with this. But everyone understood the subtext. A poor defendant might have faced murder charges despite the same evidence. Wealth had already shaped the outcome before trial even began. Public reaction was immediate and divided. Gulf News ran the headline, "Billionaire heir charged in manslaughter of Syrian national." Khaleej Times, "Love triangle ends in death at luxury JBR apartment." Arabian Business, "Al-Khoury family in crisis after heir's arrest." Social media exploded. Arabic Twitter was split. Some supported the honor defense, arguing that systematic deception about marriage justified extreme emotional response. Others condemned violence regardless of provocation. Expat forums expressed outrage that wealth was already protecting a killer. The Russian community supported Anya, demanding justice. The Syrian community mourned Rami, while criticizing all parties involved. The bail hearing on September 28 revealed the gulf between defendants with resources and those without. George Nader argued, "My client is not a flight risk. He has deep UAE roots through family business. He surrendered peacefully. He's willing to wear an ankle monitor." Proposed bail, 2 million dirhams. Prosecutor Al-Kawari opposed. The severity of the crime, combined with the defendant's wealth and access to private jets and international properties, makes him a significant flight risk. There's also potential for witness intimidation. The judge ruled, bail is granted. Amount, 5 million dirhams, approximately $1.36 million. Conditions, surrender passport, daily check-ins with police, no contact with witnesses. Violation means immediate detention. The bail payment took 12 minutes. Wire transfer from Al-Khoury Properties corporate account to Dubai courts, 5 million dirhams. For perspective, that equaled 282 years of Rami's salary at the Hilton. 10 days after killing someone, Fadi was sleeping in his Emirates Hills bedroom. Anya was sleeping on a friend's couch in Dara, jobless, traumatized, and widowed. The trial preparation phase lasted 6 weeks. George Nader's team worked 18-hour days building the emotional distress defense. They hired Dr. Hassan al-Rashid, a Lebanese forensic psychologist trained in London who specialized in cultural psychology. His fee, 50,000 dirhams for evaluation and testimony. Dr. al-Rashid spent 8 hours interviewing Fadi in November 2024. His evaluation would become the cornerstone of the defense. Diagnosis: acute stress disorder meeting DSM-5 criteria. Complicated grief reaction. Temporary dissociative state during incident. Assessment: subject experienced compound psychological trauma, father's death, systematic deception revelation, public humiliation, and cultural honor violation, occurring simultaneously within 72 hours. These stressors created psychological state incompatible with premeditated intent. Subject's actions consistent with dissociative response to overwhelming emotional stimuli. Conclusion: Fadi al-Khoury was in diminished capacity state. While legally responsible for actions, the intent required for murder was absent. This is textbook crime of passion. The defense also hired Dr. Layla Hassan, an Egyptian cultural anthropologist with a PhD from Oxford and expertise in Arab honor cultures. Her fee, 40,000 dirhams. Her testimony would explain, in traditional Arab cultural framework, the type of deception Anya perpetrated is among the most severe honor violations possible. Marriage deception isn't just lying, it's attacking family honor. Fadi's family, discovering his girlfriend had a husband, created profound social shame. Being revealed as the other man to a hotel clerk undermined fundamental male identity. Honor violations during mourning are exponentially more damaging psychologically. She was careful to add, "I'm not justifying violence, but understanding cultural context explains the psychological severity of what Fadi experienced." In his cultural framework, this wasn't just relationship disappointment. It was existential identity destruction. The prosecution assembled their own experts. Dr. Sarah Morrison, a British forensic psychiatrist, countered, "Emotional distress doesn't excuse murder in any culture." Mr. Al-Khoury had multiple opportunities to choose nonviolent responses. The defense's cultural argument essentially claims Arab men can't control themselves, which is both legally irrelevant and culturally offensive. A financial crimes analyst testified for the prosecution. Yes, Anya deceived Mr. Al-Khoury, but examining what she actually stole, he voluntarily gifted her an apartment, a car, monthly allowances. There's no fraud in the legal sense. She didn't access his accounts. She didn't forge documents. She accepted gifts from someone who wanted to give them. Immoral? Perhaps. Criminal? No. Murder-worthy? Absolutely not. The trial began on November 15, 2024. Day 7 brought the moment everyone had been waiting for, Anya's testimony. She'd lost 15 pounds since September. Her hair, once carefully maintained, was pulled back simply. No makeup, no designer clothes. She wore a simple black dress borrowed from a friend. The transformation was stark, from glamorous nightclub dancer to devastated widow. Prosecutor Al-Khoury conducted direct examination. "Mrs. Kassab, please tell the court about the night of September 17th. Anya's voice was quiet but steady. "Rami and I were cooking dinner. It was Friday, the only time we had together. He was making mujadara, his mother's recipe. We were talking about Canada, about finally leaving Dubai and starting real life together. When did you realize Mr. Al-Khoury had entered the apartment? I heard his voice, cold, angry. He said something like, 'So this is what I'm paying for.' I turned around and he was just standing there with this folder of photographs. What happened next? He threw the folder on the counter. Pictures of me and Rami. He knew everything. I tried to explain, but he was so angry. Not just angry, broken. I'd never seen him like that. Did you or your husband threaten Mr. Al-Khoury? No, never. Rami tried to calm him down. Rami was a gentle person. He worked with angry hotel guests every day. He knew how to de-escalate, but Fadi wasn't listening. Tell the court what Mr. Al-Khoury did. Tears started flowing. He grabbed a bottle, the wine bottle he'd brought weeks ago, and he just swung it. Rami was just trying to get him to leave, and Fadi hit him so hard. The glass broke, blood everywhere. Rami fell and he wasn't moving and she broke down. The court called a recess. George Nader's cross-examination was brutal. His strategy: make the jury see Anya as fraud artist, not grieving widow. Mrs. Kassab? Or is it Mrs. Volkov? Which name are you using today? My married name is Kassab. But you didn't use it for 3 years while accepting money from my client. You lied about being married. Correct. Yes, I kept my maiden name professionally. You didn't just keep a maiden name. You actively concealed a marriage while accepting hundreds of thousands in money and gifts. Isn't that fraud? I never promised him anything. He gave those things freely. Did you tell him you were married? No. Did you tell him the apartment he bought you was where you spent weekends with your actual husband? No. Did you laugh about him? When you were with your husband, did you laugh about the stupid rich man who believed your lies? Long pause. Sometimes, yes. Audible reaction from the courtroom. So you systematically deceived a grieving man, took hundreds of thousands of dollars from him, mocked him behind his back, and now you want us to believe you're the victim? I didn't kill anyone, but you created the situation that led to death. You are the reason we're all here. Later in cross-examination, George landed his devastating blow. How much money did you plan to take from Mr. Al-Khoury before disappearing? I don't understand the question. You had a target amount. How much? When were you planning to vanish? Long pause. $500,000. We were going to leave in November. November 2024. Next month. So you had a specific exit strategy. This was premeditated fraud. It was survival. No further questions. December 3, 2024. Verdict day. Dubai Criminal Court. Judge Hassan Al-Mansouri presiding with a 3-judge panel. They deliberated for 6 hours. The court has carefully considered all evidence, expert testimony, and legal arguments. We find the defendant, Fadi Ibrahim Al-Khoury, guilty of manslaughter under Article 343 of UAE Penal Code. Mixed reactions. Prosecution satisfied but not celebrating. Defense expected this. However, the court acknowledges significant mitigating circumstances: emotional distress from father's death, provocation through systematic deception, cultural context of honor violation, no prior criminal history, genuine remorse demonstrated. Sentencing will reflect these factors. The sentence: Fadi Al-Khoury is sentenced to 7 years imprisonment, with possibility of parole after serving 4 years. Additional conditions: 3 years probation post-release, mandatory anger management and psychological counseling, financial restitution to victim's family of 200,000 dirhams, approximately $54,500. Outside court, prosecutor Al-Khoury said, 7 years for taking a life. This is disappointment, but it's within legal parameters. George Nader: this is fair outcome. Fadi takes responsibility for tragic accident born from extraordinary emotional circumstances. The Syrian community issued a statement: 4 years for murder? Because he's rich? Because victim was Syrian refugee? This is not justice. This is a price list. Rami Kassab's life had been valued at $54,500. 7 years of imprisonment, but really 4 with parole. In Dubai's justice system, that was the cost of 1 human life when the defendant could afford the best defense money could buy. December 10, 2024. Al-Awar Central Prison, 30 kilometers outside Dubai. Fadi Ibrahim Al-Khoury began his sentence in conditions that most inmates could only dream about. His cell was private, officially for safety reasons, realistically because money made it possible. While standard inmates shared 8 by 10-foot cells with 3 or 4 others, Fadi had his own space. The unofficial economy was simple. Private cell cost 5,000 dirhams monthly to the staff welfare fund. Better food, 3,000 dirhams. Extra visits, 2,000 dirhams each. Total monthly cost of comfortable incarceration, approximately 15,000 dirhams, about $4,100. A guard explained it simply: everybody knows rich prisoners get different treatment. The Al-Khoury family pays donations. He's not violent, not causing problems. Why make his life harder than it needs to be? But the privileges that made Fadi's incarceration tolerable also educated him. The other prisoners had stories. Ahmed, Egyptian, serving 3 years for stealing 15,000 dirhams to pay his daughter's medical bills. Muhammad, Pakistani, 5 years for bounce checks during the economic crash. James, Nigerian, 6 years for marijuana possession, first offense. Ahmed said it plainly one afternoon in the library: you killed someone and got 7 years. I stole money to save my daughter and got 3. When I asked the judge if that seemed fair, he said the law doesn't measure fairness, it measures facts. Rich man's facts look different than poor man's facts. Fadi had no response. Ahmed was right. His cell window faced east. Every morning he could see Emirates Hills in the distance, the neighborhood where he'd grown up with every advantage. From prison, those villas looked like toys. He'd spent 38 years thinking that view represented the whole world. In prison, he learned it was just a tiny, privileged corner. A journal entry from April 2025. I can't stop seeing his face when the bottle hit him. That moment of confusion before he fell. I took everything from him, the rest of his life, all his futures. Anya took my dignity, but I took his everything. There's no equivalence there. The court gave me 7 years. Rami got eternity. That's the real sentence. While Fadi learned lessons in comfortable conditions, Anya Volkov experienced complete destruction. The verdict closed Rami's case legally but opened Anya's personal hell. Dubai immigration issued their directive immediately: deportation within 30 days, permanent ban from UAE entry. Reason: visa violation, involvement in criminal case, moral turpitude. The JBR apartment reverted to the Al-Khoury family. They cleared the contents. Anya wasn't permitted to enter. Everything inside was disposed of. The Mercedes was repossessed. Her bank accounts were closed. She had nowhere to live, no income, no legal status, and 30 days before forced deportation. Was Anya a victim or perpetrator? The uncomfortable answer: both. She was a woman with limited options working in Dubai on precarious visa. The alternatives were stark: $1,500 monthly as dancer, or $6,000 as companion to wealthy men. Society created those options. But she didn't just accept gifts. She cultivated deep emotional dependency in Fadi while planning to disappear with his money. She laughed about him with Rami. She built a 3-year lie requiring 2 phones, 2 personalities, 2 complete lives. That transcends survival into calculated exploitation. Was Fadi a murderer or broken man? Again, both. He experienced genuine compound trauma: father's death, systematic betrayal, public humiliation, cultural honor destruction, all within 72 hours. Forensic psychologists confirmed diminished capacity. The legal system acknowledged this with manslaughter charges rather than murder. But he still drove to that apartment, still grabbed that bottle, still swung it with enough force to shatter a skull. Rami is still dead. Understanding why someone commits violence doesn't erase the violence. Can justice exist in the presence of extreme wealth inequality? The evidence suggests no. Fadi had $1.4 million for legal defense, expert witnesses who reshaped the narrative, bail that let him go home, and comfortable prison conditions. He'll serve 4 years and emerge at 42 with a $45 million trust fund. Rami had nothing. His death was valued at $54,500. His family struggled to afford retrieving his body. Anya had a public defender who spent 30 minutes preparing her testimony. She lost everything and was deported to poverty with untreated trauma. If Rami had killed Fadi in the same confrontation, defending himself, his wife, his home, would he have received 7 years with parole after 4? The answer is obvious to anyone who understands how the system works. The cultural defense question remains controversial. Fadi's team successfully argued that Arab honor culture made betrayal exponentially more traumatic. Dr. Layla Hassan's testimony about Aib, shame that destroys social standing, resonated with Arabic-speaking judges. But should cultural context modify legal outcomes? Understanding honor culture helps us understand Fadi's pain. It doesn't justify violence. The balance between cultural understanding and universal legal standards will always be controversial. The systemic failures that enabled this tragedy remain unaddressed. Dubai's underground economy of transactional relationships continues. Wealthy men seek young companions. Women with limited options provide companionship for resources. No legal framework protects either party. No safety net exists when arrangements collapse. Violence and exploitation flourish in legal gray areas. Mental health support is virtually non-existent for people without wealth. Fadi got therapy only after violence occurred. Anya still has untreated PTSD. Rami never had access to counseling for refugee trauma or guidance about ethical complications. The system waits for catastrophe rather than investing in prevention. 3 UAE human rights organizations proposed reforms after this case: mandatory cooling-off periods before confrontations, equal legal representation standards, residency protections for crime witnesses. All 3 proposals were quietly tabled. As of November 2025, none have progressed. The system that failed to prevent this tragedy has not meaningfully changed. What lessons emerge from the wreckage? For individuals, build your identity on things you control: your values, your skills, your character. Relationships can enhance identity but shouldn't constitute it entirely. Fadi built his entire sense of self around Anya. When that collapsed, he collapsed. Survival might justify deception in extreme circumstances. It doesn't justify building an entire life on lies that harm others. Transactional relationships require explicit terms. Implicit assumptions create disasters. Neither Fadi nor Anya was honest about the actual transaction. That dishonesty proved fatal. For society, either reform systems to create actual equality before law, or stop pretending that's the goal. The current system is neither just nor honest about its injustice. Wealth determines outcomes. That's policy choice, not inevitability. Cultural context can explain behavior without excusing it. Understanding honor culture helps us understand Fadi's emotional state. It doesn't justify what he did to Rami. We need to invest in prevention rather than punishment after the fact. This tragedy had warning signs everywhere. Systems to intervene before violence could have saved a life. 3 years ago, a glass bottle changed 4 lives forever. Rami Kassab died on a marble floor in a luxury apartment, killed by a man who felt betrayed by the woman both of them loved. Anya Volkov returned to Russian poverty, carrying guilt that will never fully heal. Fadi Al-Khoury sits in a comfortable prison cell, serving a sentence that will end while he's young enough to rebuild, but carrying knowledge that he took a life. And we're left with questions that have no clean answer. Was justice served? Depends who you ask. Could this have been prevented? Probably. Will it happen again? Almost certainly. Because the systems that created this tragedy, wealth inequality, transactional relationships, inadequate mental health support, cultural honor codes, justice system bias, all remain unchanged. This case isn't exceptional. It's exemplary. How many similar stories never make news? How many Ramus die in anonymity? How many Anyas get deported in silence? How many Fadis use wealth to make problems disappear entirely? The truth we don't want to face: our systems don't prevent violence, they just determine who pays the price when violence occurs. And overwhelmingly, the poor pay more than the rich, refugees pay more than citizens, and the dead can't advocate for themselves. Rami Kassab survived civil war. He survived refugee camps. He survived years of precarious existence. He was 2 months away from Canada, 2 months from freedom, and he died because love and money collided in the worst possible way, in a system designed to protect everyone except people like him. His death wasn't justice. His death wasn't necessary. His death was the consequence of hundreds of small decisions by multiple people, operating in systems that incentivize deception, commodify relationships, and protect the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. If you found yourself in any of these positions, Anya's desperate survival, Fadi's emotional devastation, Rami's complicit love, would you have made different choices? Do you know for certain? That's the most disturbing truth this case reveals. None of these people were monsters. They were humans making human decisions under inhuman pressure. And any of us in similar circumstances might make similar mistakes. We are all closer to this tragedy than we want to admit. The bottle isn't in your hand. But are the conditions that put it in Fadi's hand really that far removed from your own life? Are Anya's desperate calculations really that different from choices we all make about money and survival? Is Rami's faith that love would triumph really that naive? Until we change the systems that make these tragedies inevitable, until we build societies that don't force people to choose between integrity and survival, that don't value lives based on wealth, that don't punish vulnerability while rewarding privilege, stories like this will keep happening. Different names, different cities, different details, but the same fundamental tragedy: people making understandable choices in impossible circumstances, and someone dying as a result. The marble floors in apartment 2407 have been cleaned. New tenants live there now. The bloodstains are gone. But the stain on conscience, on the justice system, on Dubai's invisible economy, on all of us who participated by watching, that stain remains. Rami Kassab's life mattered. His dreams mattered. His death should matter. Not as entertainment, not as scandal, but as indictment of systems that failed him, and as warning about systems that continue to fail thousands of others just like him. This isn't just true crime. This is a mirror. And if you look closely enough, you might see yourself reflected in it. Not as villain, not as victim, but as participant in systems that allow tragedies like this to happen again and again. What will you do with that knowledge?